take about, what, 10 minutes or so of your time to speak about Formula 2 this year. Because, good lord, that series is just wild this year. So as of recording and posting this video on the 4th of July ahead of Silverstone, there have been 7 race weekends held. 14 races in total. And in those 14 races, there have been 12 different winners. One of whom is 20th in the championship, another of whom is 21st in the championship, and none of whom are the championship leader. Yes, this entire video is stemming from this tweet from Chris Medland over the Austrian Grand Prix weekend. Only 2 drivers have won multiple races this year. The first being Zane Maloney, who at the opening race weekend in Bahrain became the first ever driver in the history of this category to win both races of the first race weekend of the season. And then Isaac Hadjar also has won 2 races this year, taking the feature race in both Australia and then in Imola. What else has happened and why else has won? Well, I'm glad you asked. Back to Bahrain for a second, because Kushmaini claimed pole position that weekend, before he then got disqualified from qualifying, handing pole to Gabriel Bortoleto. Then in Saudi Arabia, Ollie Behrman claimed pole position, before he then withdrew from the weekend to go become the youngest Ferrari driver in F1 history, which handed pole to Kushmaini, the man who lost pole in Bahrain. Richard Verschoor won the sprint race that weekend, before he also ended up being disqualified due to a technical infringement, handing the win to Dennis Hauger, and then it was Enzo Fittipaldi taking the feature race win that weekend. In Australia, we've already covered the feature race. It was won by Isaac Hadjar, and he did win the sprint race as well, to begin with, but he then got a 10-second penalty for this that happened later in the race, which gave the win to Roman Stanek, the man currently 21st in the championship. In Imola, we've already covered the feature race again. It was Isaac Hadjar taking the win, while the sprint race went the way of Franco Colapinto. In Barcelona, the Victor Spoils went the way of Victor Martins and Jack Crawford respectively. Then there's the weekend that happened before Barcelona, which was Monaco. The streets of Monaco is always entertaining in Formula 2 because, well, it's F2. And in qualifying, which is split into 2 groups because, well, again, F2 in Monaco, it was Richard Verschoor at the top at the end of the 2 sessions, meaning he would have pole for the feature race, while P1 for the sprint race would be Taylor Barnard. Now, he had actually done a race in Monaco 4 weeks earlier in Formula E, where he was standing in at McLaren for Sam Bird, who had injured himself in practice. Now, Barnard had finished that Monaco E Prix in 14th place, so nothing spectacular, but he put the experience of already having done laps in Monaco to good use, as he ended up taking the sprint race win that weekend. And yes, he is the man who's currently 20th in the championship. But the wild part of the Monaco weekend comes in the feature race. Now, throughout the race then, there was a slight mechanical scare for Richard Verschoor, the pole sitter, which then later turned into a mechanical failure that knocked him out the running, so heartbreak for him. The ever reliably unreliable F2 car strikes again. And elsewhere, Behrman made a brilliant overtake on Antonelli, but the crazy thing happened towards the end of the race and involved none of those drivers. In the closing stages of the race, the net race leader was Isaac Hadjar. He was P2 on the road though, as Williams Jr. Zach O'Sullivan hadn't made his mandatory pit stop yet. O'Sullivan had started the race in 15th place, and they clearly decided to go long and then just hope for a safety car holding out for something to happen to maybe make things a little bit better for them, and it wasn't looking to come. Until Joshua Dirksen stopped at Casino Square, bringing out the yellow flags after making contact with Maloney on the run-up Beau Rivage. O'Sullivan pulled right into the pit lane, but with only an 18-second gap to Hadjar if it stayed as just yellows, he would fall behind. But after he pulled into the pit lane, the virtual safety car came out, and that gave the Brit a huge advantage, as he, after starting 15th, might I remind you, was able to exit the pit lane still in P1. He had track position, and he got the win. All because he'd taken the gamble to just stay out and hope for a safety car or something, and a VSC came. Yes, normally in F2 you cannot pit under a VSC, under a virtual safety car, but if you're already in the pit lane when the VSC comes out, all fair game. Or rather, I think it's if you make it into the pit lane entry or something like that. But O'Sullivan was already in the pit lane. Crazy, just crazy. Then there's the most recent race weekend. Oh, we're in Austria. For starters, Prema finally got a podium. Not even just a podium, they got a win with Ollie Behrman in the sprint race, which, congratulations on the Haas seat, Ollie, by the way. But again, like Monaco, the feature race is where the wildness was. And it was a damn good advertisement for why you should not use the Mechachrome engine. And just, well, the fact that in general, despite being a new generation this year, the F2 car is, as I've said before, reliably unreliable. In the feature race in Austria, it started immediately on the formation lap, when not only did the pole sitter Dennis Hauger stall on the grid, but so did Kush Maini from P10 and Jack Crawford in P14. Now, seeing a car stalling on the grid at the beginning of the formation lap in F2, it's not completely out of the ordinary thing, it does happen. But seeing 3 in one race, I'm pretty sure this is the first time I've seen that. But that wasn't the end of it, because Zane Maloney also ended up stalling, but on the actual race start, and his race did not get any better because his car died on him. Then when the pit stop started happening, we had our 5th staller of the day. This time it was Kimi Antonelli stalling in the bloody pit lane. Yeah, mechanically this race was just, it was a dumpster fire, mechanically. And if you thought that was the end of it, think again, because with Mechachrome struck again, and this time it struck Ollie Behrman, the sprint race winner, finding his race coming to an end. Verschoor ended up retiring, Miata retired, Bortoleto ended up getting the win for the 12th different winner of the season, and then not to mention, after the race, a 30-second penalty was handed away at Pepe Marti for pitting under the virtual safety car. He didn't get in time, hence the penalty. It's wild this year. You know, Formula 2 is wild this year. I expect nothing less in Silverstone this weekend. And you know, what's also wild is that the guys fighting for the title, yeah, not really in the conversation for an F1 drive. I mean, the only one who might have a chance is Isaac Hadjar, but that's only if sugar-free Red Bull don't fancy Ricardo or Lawson. But hey, that's trying to get onto the F1 grid for you. Oh, and happy 4th of July to the Americans, by the way, and to my fellow people living in the UK. Happy day we vote the Tories out. Anyway, just seriously, F2 is worth watching. Are you keeping up with it? And if so, what do you think of the second tier this year? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new around here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.